stop calling them independent. What you're seeing isn't strength. It's a brain and body that learned depending on others means death. She is 7 years old, standing on a chair in a quiet kitchen at midnight. The blue light from a phone screen shines on her face as she looks closely at a recipe website, trying to understand what boil until al dente means. Her stomach stopped making hungry sounds hours ago. Now there's just an empty feeling that seems normal. She measures water with a coffee cup because she doesn't know where the measuring cups are. The pasta box makes noise as her small hands struggle with the cardboard flap. No one is coming home tonight. Or maybe they are. But she's learned that maybe is a question children shouldn't ask out loud. She doesn't cry anymore when she's hungry. She doesn't call for help that won't come. Instead, she types another search. How to know when water is boiling. The kitchen timer ticks. The water begins to bubble. And somewhere in her growing brain, a path carves itself deeper. A groove that whispers a lesson she'll carry for many years. You are the only person you can count on. This is what happens when a child becomes the builder of their own childhood. When staying alive replaces being cared for. When taking care of yourself isn't a choice, but a rule written in the language of being ignored and left alone. These children don't learn independence. They learn something that costs much more. They learn that needing someone is dangerous. And maybe you're watching this because you see something of yourself in that little girl in the kitchen. Maybe you too built a fort so strong that now you can't escape it. Maybe you're wondering, how do you finally let people in without losing the control that kept you safe? How do you learn to trust when your brain and body are convinced that depending on others means death? That's exactly what we're about to uncover. Because this pattern doesn't just disappear when you become an adult. It follows you into every relationship, every moment someone tries to care for you, every time help is offered and your body screams danger. Stop calling them independent. Stop praising their ability to take care of themselves. Because what you're seeing isn't strength. It's a brain and body that learned depending on others equals danger. And this fort of independence is actually a prison they can't escape. Watch them walk into a room full of people offering help, and you'll see something strange happen. Their shoulders get tight in a way you can barely see. Their smile becomes stuck, professional, far away. When someone says, "Let me get that for you," they're already saying no before the sentence ends. "No, I've got it," they say in a way that closes doors. Watch closer. There's pride in that refusal, yes, but beneath it, something else completely. A quick moment of panic, a flash of something that looks almost like disgust. These are the adults who built their own childhoods. And what you're seeing isn't what they prefer. It's programming. They take too much pride in needing no one. They become uncomfortable, even upset when someone gives them a gift, as though kindness itself is a type of debt they cannot stand to owe. They refuse help even when they're drowning, even when accepting help would be the smart choice. You might call this independence. You might even admire it. But look deeper and you'll see what it really is. Defensive self-sufficiency syndrome. This is not strength or the ability to bounce back. It's a brain and body that learned in thousands of small moments throughout childhood that depending on others equals danger and being alone equals safety. Their brain became a recording system, writing down each time they reached out and found no one there. Each time they were hungry and had to figure out food alone. Each night they faced the dark without comfort. each problem they solved because no adult was coming to help. The young brain, amazing in its ability to adapt, drew a conclusion that made perfect sense given the information. People can't be trusted. Staying alive requires taking care of yourself completely. Needing someone gives them the power to hurt you. And so, a survival math problem formed in their brain's structure. Depending on others equals danger. Being alone equals safety. Need nothing, risk nothing. This fort of independence becomes who they are. It shapes every choice, every relationship, every moment someone tries to get close. What began as a child's desperate way to adapt to being ignored becomes an adult's main characteristic. When they can't escape, even when they want to, even when the walls they built for protection become the very thing keeping them trapped and alone. But to understand how deep this programming goes, we need to see what these children were actually doing when no one was watching. Picture a 7-year-old searching online for how to cook pasta at midnight because there's no food in the house and no adult coming home. That's not pretend. That's the invisible work millions of children are doing right now. And the cost to their minds doesn't show up until many years later. The work was invisible because it happened behind closed doors, in moments no one saw, in the gap between what childhood should be and what these children actually lived. Physical self-parenting meant a 10-year-old learning to make scrambled eggs because breakfast didn't appear on its own. It meant setting their own alarm clock, getting themselves dressed and out the door for school, while parents slept off hangovers or worked night shifts that never seemed to end. It meant a 12-year-old searching symptoms online when they felt sick, deciding whether they needed a doctor, sometimes even faking permission slips because getting a parent's signature felt impossible. It meant handling lunch money, planning how to spend money for school supplies, figuring out how to wash clothes when nothing clean was left. These children became experts in practical survival. But at what cost? Emotional self-parenting cut even deeper. Picture a child lying awake at 2 a.m., frozen by nightmares, talking themselves back to calm because crying out brings no comfort, or worse, brings anger. They learned to celebrate achievements alone, their report cards signed by their own hands, their small victories echoing in empty rooms. They made major decisions, whether to try out for the team, which friends to trust, how to handle bullies, without guidance, without the safety net of adult wisdom. When fear came, they became both the frightened child and the comforting parent, split into two roles that should never have belonged to one small person. They learned to say, "It's going to be okay," to themselves in the mirror, practicing the comfort no one else gave them. Social self-parenting meant teaching themselves the unwritten rules of human interaction through watching and painful trial and error. They watched other families at restaurants, at parks, studying how people were supposed to treat each other. They learned boundaries by having theirs crossed, then slowly, painfully, figuring out where lines should be drawn. When bullying happened, they handled it alone, developing strategies, making choices about when to fight back or stay quiet, carrying the weight of social survival on shoulders far too small. The conclusion these children drew was devastatingly logical. Adults can't be trusted or aren't available. Their survival depends on their own ability alone. Doctors who study the mind have a term for this: premature pseudo-maturity. Children who appear remarkably advanced, responsible beyond their years, but who are at the same time missing critical growing up milestones. They look mature, they act capable, but underneath, essential parts of childhood, play, trust, dependence, the luxury of not knowing, remain underdeveloped. stunted by necessity. The main trauma wasn't just the work itself. It was that every mistake had consequences no child should handle alone. A burned hand from a hot stove. Going hungry because they calculated the grocery budget wrong. Missing school because they overslept and no one woke them. Wearing dirty clothes because they didn't understand the washing machine. If you recognize yourself in this description, I want you to pause right now and acknowledge something. Every meal you made yourself, every fear you talked yourself through, every problem you solved alone, that wasn't normal childhood responsibility. That was work, heavy, exhausting adult work that a child did because they had no choice. So before we continue, take a moment to honor that child. They didn't just survive. They parented themselves through situations most adults would struggle with. That deserves recognition. This wasn't just behavioral adaptation, but here's what most people miss. These survival strategies weren't chosen on purpose. While you were learning to trust people, their brains were learning something else. How to survive without ever trusting anyone again. And this isn't psychology theory. This is measurable brain rewiring you can see on brain scans. The brain of a self-raised child reveals a strange contradiction. The brain scientists can now map with stunning accuracy. Sped up executive function paired with deeply damaged attachment systems. It's as if the brain made a calculated trade, sacrificing connection for ability, closeness for independence. The prefrontal cortex, the brain's command center for decision-making, planning, and impulse control, activates too early in these children. By age 8 or 9, their prefrontal regions show activity patterns typically seen in teenagers or young adults. They're making complex decisions, weighing consequences, managing resources, all brain tasks that should develop gradually over years. But when survival demands it, the brain speeds up. It has no choice. Meanwhile, the limbic system, the emotional brain responsible for attachment, trust, and social bonding, remains always underdeveloped. The wiring that should wire itself through thousands of positive interactions with caregivers never fully forms. The brain pathways that teach a child people are safe, connection is good, I can rely on others, simply don't get built. Or they get built weakly, occasionally, unreliably. Think of the nervous system as a highway network. In a healthy childhood, the brain builds multiple routes, highways of self-reliance, yes, but also strong pathways of trust, connection, and mutual dependence. The self-raised child's brain, however, builds self-reliant superhighways, 8 lanes wide, perfectly paved with no speed limit, that completely bypass the trust routes. When help is offered, the nervous system literally cannot find the brain pathway to accept it. The roads don't exist. The brain chemistry tells the same story. Research shows reduced oxytocin receptors in adults who raised themselves as children. Oxytocin being the bonding hormone that creates feelings of safety, warmth, and connection with others. At the same time, their baseline cortisol levels remain high, cortisol being the stress hormone that signals danger and threat. Their biochemistry whispers a constant message: stay alert, stay separate, stay safe. Perhaps most revealing is what happens in the anterior cingulate cortex, the brain region that processes social pain and evaluates the cost-benefit of social cooperation. When self-raised adults are offered help in laboratory settings, brain imaging shows decreased activity in this region. Their brains literally register help as less valuable, less relevant, less worthy of consideration than it does for people with secure childhoods. This is why isolation and difficulty accepting support aren't personality preferences. their nervous systems trained to survive without co-regulation. The brain adapted magnificently to an environment where depending on others was dangerous. The tragedy is that this adaptation, so brilliant in childhood, becomes a cage in adulthood. Here's your takeaway. The next time you feel that panic rising when someone offers to help, or that voice in your head says, "I should be able to do this alone," remember, this isn't a character flaw. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're operating from brain pathways carved by a childhood that gave you no other option. That awareness alone is the first step to changing the pattern. And years later, when these children become adults, this wiring doesn't just affect their inner world. It shapes every relationship they enter. Self-raised children don't become one type of adult. They become 4 very specific types, and the pattern they follow is so predictable, therapists can identify which type within the first session: the lone wolf, the control addict, the secret struggler, the commitment phobic. Which one are you? The brain wiring doesn't disappear when childhood ends. Instead, it hardens into distinct adult patterns, 4 recognizable fortresses, each one a different design of self-protection. The lone wolf builds an entire life around needing no one. They choose careers that require minimal teamwork, freelancing, remote work, entrepreneurship. They live alone and call it preference. They travel solo and call it freedom. But watch what happens when someone offers help. Their chest tightens, their breath quickens, panic floods their system. The offer itself feels like an invasion, a threat to the carefully built world where they control everything because they require nothing. Ask them if they need support, and they'll respond with barely hidden horror, as though you've suggested something disgusting. The control addict operates differently, but from the same wound. They must manage every detail, orchestrate every outcome, direct every interaction. In relationships, they become the planner, the organizer, the one who handles everything. They interpret any involvement from others as criticism, any suggestion as an attack on their ability. Their partners feel like they're walking on eggshells, afraid to help because help gets rejected as interference. The control addict mistakes micromanagement for safety, unaware that their fortress is crushing the very relationships they claim to want. The secret struggler might be the most heartbreaking type because they look so successful from the outside. To co-workers, they're the reliable one. To friends, they're the capable one. To family, they're the one who has it all together. But inside, they're collapsing. They work themselves to exhaustion, say yes when they mean no, carry burdens they should share, all while maintaining a flawless exterior. They've mastered the performance of competence while drowning in private desperation. Asking for help feels like admitting defeat, like pulling back a curtain to reveal the fraud they believe themselves to be. The commitment phobic keeps every relationship shallow enough to wade through, but never deep enough to drown in. They date, but don't commit. They make friends, but keep them at arm's length. They join communities, but never truly belong. The moment someone gets close, the moment real closeness threatens, the moment mutual dependence becomes possible, they run. Not because they don't want connection, but because connection requires the very thing their nervous system coded as deadly: needing someone. Research proves what therapists observe. Adults who raised themselves show 70% higher rates of attachment avoidance compared to those with secure childhoods. They move toward careers and lifestyles that maximize independence. they achieve remarkable external success. They are exceptional problem solvers after all, but experience deep internal loneliness. The contradiction is devastating. Competence without connection, achievement without closeness, survival without truly living. But beneath these patterns is something even more painful, something that happens when someone actually tries to care for them. Here's the mind twister. The moment someone proves they're reliable, that's when they run. The second someone says, "I'm here for you," that's when the panic starts, because their nervous system learned that the people who promise to stay are the ones who hurt you most. The pattern is contradictory and cruel. The more trustworthy someone proves to be, the more terrifying they become. When help is offered, self-raised adults experience a triple emotional trigger that arrives at the same time, like 3 alarm bells ringing at once. First comes shame, the burning feeling that needing help exposes them as incompetent, weak, the fraud they've always feared they were. Then fear, the gut-level certainty that accepting help creates debt, dependency, vulnerability they cannot afford. Finally, anger, a hot flash of resentment at the helper for putting them in this position, for seeing their need, for offering what their childhood taught them to never expect. This isn't abstract psychology. This is help dysphoria, a clinical term describing the gut-level discomfort, sometimes approaching physical illness, that people experience when help is offered. Their heart races, their palms sweat, nausea rises in their throat. The body responds to kindness as if it were danger. Because once upon a time, in the formative years when their brain was learning what the world meant, asking for help led to disappointment, or worse, to mockery, to punishment, to abandonment, to nothing at all. The internal experience maps itself in devastating equations. Being cared for equals loss of control. Vulnerability equals weakness. Mutual dependence equals being trapped. Every offer of support triggers an ancient alarm. If I let you in, if I lean on you, if I need you, you will leave. And when you leave, I will not survive. This is why self-raised adults sabotage relationships exactly when they become secure. A partner who shows up consistently, who proves reliable month after month, who demonstrates genuine care, this person becomes the most dangerous person in their world. Because reliability contradicts the core belief their childhood burned into their nervous system. No one will be there. When someone stays, when someone proves trustworthy, the mental conflict becomes unbearable. The self-raised adult must resolve the conflict between their lived experience, people always leave, and current reality. This person is staying. Instead of updating the belief, they often eliminate the conflict by pushing the person away. They pick fights. They withdraw emotionally. They create distance. They manufacture reasons to leave first before they can be left. The internal mantra plays on repeat, often beneath conscious awareness. If I need you, you can hurt me. If I need nothing, I'm safe. So they choose safety over connection, control over closeness, being alone over risk. Not because they don't want love, they want it desperately, but because the nervous system that kept them alive as a child now keeps them alone as an adult, unable to tell the difference between past danger and present safety, still operating from the programming written many years ago in survival code. So here's a practical tool you can use this week. Notice when you're about to push someone away or refuse help. In that moment, ask yourself 3 questions. Am I rejecting this help because I genuinely don't need it, or because accepting it feels dangerous? What's the worst thing that could actually happen if I say yes? And finally, is this person actually untrustworthy? Or am I seeing them through the lens of people who disappointed me in the past? You don't have to change your behavior yet. Just practice observing the pattern. Awareness comes before change. This is where most people give up, convinced they're permanently broken, destined for isolation. But brain science tells a different story. Now, here's where the story changes. That fortress you built, the one that kept you safe, but also kept you alone, it doesn't have to be permanent, because the same brain that learned to survive alone can learn something new, how to let people in without losing yourself. And it starts with experiments so small they'll feel almost ridiculous. The brain science of healing offers something the wounded child never had: hope grounded in biology. Because the same neuroplasticity that allowed your brain to adapt to neglect can allow it to adapt to connection. The pathways can be rewired. The fortress can develop doors. This process has a name in therapeutic circles: interdependence relearning, the gradual, often uncomfortable practice of discovering that needing others doesn't erase your competence, that you can be both capable and connected, and that asking for help doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. The brain that carved self-reliant superhighways in childhood can, with intentional practice, build new brain roots toward mutual dependence. Not overnight, not easily, but possible, measurably, scientifically possible. Brain imaging studies show that adults who engage in consistent trust-building behaviors over 6 to 12 months develop increased activity in their anterior cingulate cortex when receiving help. The brain literally rewires to register support as safe rather than threatening. The healing mechanics start with what therapists call micro-experiments, actions so small your nervous system might tolerate them even while screaming danger. Ask a coworker to grab you coffee when they're heading to the break room. Request a friend's opinion on something you've already decided. Let someone else choose the restaurant. These aren't grand gestures of vulnerability. They're tiny acts of practice dependence. The key is accepting help without immediate payback. This is where the real rewiring happens. The self-raised adult's instinct is to repay help instantly, to eliminate the debt, to restore the balance that makes them feel safe. But healing requires sitting in the discomfort of receiving without earning it. Your nervous system will protest. Let it. Every time you receive help and the feared catastrophe doesn't occur, you're creating what clinicians call corrective experiences. Moments when vulnerability isn't punished, when dependence doesn't lead to abandonment, when being seen in your need doesn't result in rejection. This is also where good judgment becomes crucial. Healing isn't about becoming dependent on everyone or trusting without thinking. It's about learning the difference between independence, healthy autonomy, genuine preference for solitude, choosing to handle things yourself, and isolation, protective withdrawal, refusing help out of fear, pushing people away because closeness feels dangerous. Healthy interdependence means you can do things alone, and you can let others help when it serves you. It means asking for support doesn't trigger end-of-the-world panic. It means accepting care doesn't feel like weakness. Before any of this healing can happen, though, you must honor the past. The child who had to parent themselves did an extraordinary job. They survived. They developed remarkable capabilities. They figured out how to navigate a world that should have been navigating them. That child deserves recognition, not shame. The independence they built wasn't a mistake. It was brilliant adaptation to an impossible situation. But what worked then doesn't have to define now. You can acknowledge the past while choosing a different future. The practice looks like this. Once a week, ask someone for help with something you could do yourself. Not something impossible, something manageable, something that wouldn't require much from them, but requires everything from you. The willingness to be seen in your need, to accept without immediately giving back, to sit in the discomfort of receiving. Let me give you a concrete challenge to start rewiring these patterns. For the next 30 days, practice the small ask exercise. Once a week, just once. Ask someone for help with something small that you could technically do yourself. Ask a coworker to grab you coffee when they're going. Ask a friend for their opinion on something you've already decided. Ask your partner to handle a task you usually control. The key is, don't give back immediately. Let yourself sit in the discomfort of receiving without earning it. Your nervous system will scream that this is dangerous. That's exactly the pattern you're rewiring. Each time you do this and the world doesn't end, you're creating new brain pathways. You're teaching your brain that interdependence can be safe. Because the truth is, the story of the self-raised child doesn't have to end in isolation. Self-raised children became adults who survive by needing no one. But survival isn't the same as thriving. What kept you alive then keeps you isolated now. The defensive self-sufficiency that protected a vulnerable child has hardened into adult patterns that prevent the very connection you secretly long for. Healing means recognizing that the independence you built saved you then, but isolates you now. It means understanding that your nervous system isn't broken. It's brilliantly adapted to circumstances that no longer exist. The fortress you constructed, whether you became the lone wolf, the control addict, the secret struggler, or the commitment phobic, served a purpose. It kept you safe when safety was scarce. It gave you control when everything felt chaotic. It protected you from disappointment by eliminating expectation. But fortresses, by their very design, are built to keep people out. And the walls that once protected you now imprison you. Having to raise yourself shaped your extraordinary strength, your remarkable competence, your ability to solve problems most people couldn't handle. These aren't qualities to dismiss or diminish, but they also don't mean you must stay alone forever. The child who figured everything out alone deserved a parent, a guide, a safe place to not know the answers. That child deserved to be held during nightmares, to have meals appear without struggle, to make mistakes without bearing adult consequences, to ask for help and receive it. They deserved childhood. They didn't get it, and that wasn't their fault. But here's what's true now, in this present moment where you have power you didn't have then. You can choose differently. You can choose to let people in, to accept help without losing yourself, to build interdependence instead of isolation. The brain pathways that learned self-sufficiency can learn mutual dependence. The nervous system that coded people as dangerous can, with patience and practice, learn to register connection as safe. This doesn't mean trusting everyone. It doesn't mean abandoning your competence. It means expanding your range, adding interdependence to your skills without erasing independence. It means both and rather than either or. You raised yourself beautifully, but you were never meant to do it alone. The human nervous system is designed for co-regulation, for shared burdens, for the back and forth dance of giving and receiving care. You can honor the child who survived by giving the adult permission to finally, safely, let someone else carry part of the weight. The fortress can have doors. The walls can come down. You are not destined to be alone.